Hello dear students. So in earlier lecture, as you will be remembering, we have discussed about the disease and the types of disease. And you have seen on the basis of the nature of causing agent, the diseases are categorized into two categories, the infectious and non-infectious. Infectious diseases are those which are caused by some microorganisms or worms, or you can say here the factor involved is some external factor. On the other hand, we have talked about the non-infectious diseases that are caused by some internal reasons, maybe deficiency of some particular nutrient, or maybe some genetic disorder, or maybe some malfunctioning of any particular part of the body. So, if we concentrate on infectious diseases, as you know, the infectious diseases are caused by the disease causing microorganisms entering to our body. And as they are microorganisms, maybe viruses, maybe bacteria, maybe some fungus or some worms, these are rapidly growing, rapidly dividing. That's why the diseases, they spread very quickly in the society from a sick person to a healthy person. So today in this lecture, our main intention is to know what are the various modes of transmission of these infectious diseases. So here today we will discuss about the modes of transmission of course what? We will discuss about the modes of transmissions of infectious diseases. There are a number of ways in which an infectious disease may enter from a sick person to a healthy person. So if we talk about these modes here, the first simplest method is through air, or you can say through contaminated air, and such diseases are known as what? They are known as airborne diseases. So how these diseases spread? For example, let us take the case of tuberculosis, commonly known as TB, or you can say common cough cold. So how these diseases are transmitted through air? Say somebody is suffering from tuberculosis, and if he or she sneezes or coughs in the atmosphere, then what happens during this sneezing or coughing? The small droplets containing these disease causing microorganisms, here in case of tuberculosis it is bacteria, they also spread in air and get mixed up with air. Now, if a healthy person nearby inhales the same air, then what will happen? Along with air, these droplets containing the bacteria or the microorganisms, they will enter to the body of the healthy person, making the healthy person sick. So here you have seen in this way the presence of these disease causing microorganisms in the environment, it increases the risk of disease in healthy person. So this is the way of transmitting the disease through contaminated air. Same way, the disease can be transferred from a sick person to the healthy person, that is through water, of course, contaminated water, and such diseases are known as waterborne diseases. Here you can take the example of say typhoid, jaundice, etc. Typhoid, jaundice, cholera, dysentery, these all are the examples of waterborne diseases. So what happens if the person who is suffering from such diseases, his excreta gets mixed up with the water supply or with the water bodies in our surrounding, then what happens when you consume the same contaminated water? Then what happens? Then disease causing microorganisms are entering to your body, making you sick, right? So in this way the diseases can also be transferred through water. Another mode of transmission of disease is through vectors. So such diseases are known as vector transmitted diseases. So what are vectors? Vectors are the insects or animals that transfer the disease causing microorganism from a sick person to a healthy person. For example, here you can take the case of like malaria, rabies, brain fever, etc. So here if we talk about malaria, in malaria the vector is female Anopheles, a mosquito. And in rabies, the vector is dog. So in this case, say somebody is suffering from malaria and a mosquito bite is there, then the malarial parasite, that is Plasmodium vivax, that sticks to the sting of the mosquito, and when the same mosquito bites to a healthy person, then what happens? This disease causing microorganism is entering to the body of the healthy person, making the healthy person sick. Similarly, houseflies are also responsible for transmitting the disease like cholera, dysentery, etc. They are the vectors for the diseases called cholera, dysentery, etc. Another way of the transmission of disease is through blood, contaminated blood, or used syringes. So in this case, what may happen if somebody is already suffering from some disease and he or she donates its blood to a healthy person, then in that case the disease will be transmitted from a sick person to the healthy person. In this case, for example, you can take the case of HIV/AIDS. HIV is the virus responsible for causing AIDS. HIV stands for human immunodeficiency virus. And what is AIDS? AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Right? So here in this way, the disease causing microorganism will enter from a sick person to a healthy person. Or if somebody uses the used syringe, the syringe which is already used by a sick person, if the same syringe is used for a healthy person, the disease will be transferred. Another method of transferring the disease is from mother to child. There are a number of diseases that can be transferred from mother to child, either by placenta or by breastfeeding, right? So again here the example is AIDS, or sometimes it may be jaundice also. If mother is having jaundice, the possibility of having jaundice in the infant baby increases. So there are the number of ways in which the diseases can be transferred, or disease causing agents can be transmitted from a sick person to a healthy person, right? Now another important thing about the disease is how we identify that we are having something wrong or we are having some disease. So how diseases are identified? Diseases are identified on the basis of some symptoms or some expressions, and the expressing of the disease is known as manifestation of the disease. So today now we will discuss here about the manifestation of disease. Manifestation of disease means the expression of disease. How a disease expresses. Our body gives number of signs that help us to identify that we may be having some disease. You can look at very common example. For example, you are suffering from a fever. So it indicates that something is wrong in the body, but every manifestation is not always leading to a severe disease, or we cannot confirm the cause of disease, but it is an indication that something is wrong in our body. So here what will be the manifestation of disease? That depends on the mode of entry through which the disease causing pathogen is entering to our body, and finally to which part of the body it is targeting. So here this manifestation is known as organ specific or tissue specific manifestation. So expression of a disease depends on that which part, which organ or which tissue of the body is being affected. For example, if somebody is suffering from tuberculosis, the manifestation is by breathing problem or by persistent coughing. It shows that something is wrong with the breathing system, that is with the lungs. And why with the lungs? Because the disease causing bacteria is entering to the patient body through the nasal passage, because it is the case of airborne disease. So the bacteria causing tuberculosis is present in the air. When a healthy person inhales this air, this bacteria enters the body of the person through the nasal passage, and of course if it is entering through the nasal passage, finally it is going to be accumulated or targeting to the lungs, and that's why the manifestation is well expected that there will be the problem in breathing, or there may be persistent coughing. So here the points of entry through which the organisms, disease causing pathogens are entering to the body, they are known as portals of entry. So here for example we take, as I said you, the case of TB. So the TB causing bacteria, tuberculosis bacteria, is entering through our body from air through nasal passage or nostrils, and finally it is going to target our lungs, right? And symptoms, and now you can say manifestation of the disease is that there is breathing problems or breathing troubles and persistent coughing. Similarly, if you see that the microorganism causing jaundice, or you can take the case of typhoid, is entering from contaminated water. Now where will it go? Of course it will enter through mouth or buccal cavity. Here instead of typhoid we can take the example of say cholera. or dysentery. So it is entering from water through buccal cavity or mouth, and finally where it is going to affect or target the alimentary canal or digestive system. And if it is affecting the digestive system or alimentary canal, of course a digestive process is going to be affected, and now the manifestation will be in the form of you can say loose motions and vomiting, etc. Right? So in this way the effect of the disease will be visible. It's a general assumption, but always it does not happen so. The manifestation of the disease is not tissue specific or organ specific. Sometimes the point of entry is something else. We expect the target organ to be something else, but the pathogen is targeting to a different part of the body. So if we look at the non-portal manifestation, where the manifestation of the disease does not depend on the portal of entry. So here we can take the case of non-portal manifestations. So let's take an example of say encephalitis or brain fever. So here the pathogen is entering to our body through blood. It is entering in blood by mosquito bite, but as you see here that the symptom is not associated with the functioning of blood. It goes and affects the brain, right? Another example here you can take in the case of say AIDS. As you know, the AIDS virus enters from mother to child, or by used syringes, or by contaminated blood. Like finally it is going, whatever is the mean, but it is going to blood. And now this time its point of action is not blood. This time it is going to target our immune system. So here you can see the manifestation of disease is not again organ specific or tissue specific. There are some general manifestations also. And these general manifestations are known as inflammation. And that inflammation is because of the hyperactivity of our immune system, where our immune system gets activated against the entry of a disease causing microorganism. So what happens in our body, as soon as the pathogen enters to the body, then what happens, our immune system identifies and gets activated, and when it gets activated, so it recruits the cell, WBCs, they gather around, causing redness and swelling. So that is known as inflammation. and this inflammation is the result of general manifestation. It is not the tissue specific or organ specific or disease specific. It is the case of just general manifestation of a immune system, right? So here you have seen that the manifestation of disease is very important. Why this is so important? Because our further step, that is the treatment of the disease and the prevention of disease, it can be done in a much better way if we know the target organ of the microorganism or the disease causing pathogen. So one more important thing, what is the severity of manifestation? What is the extent up to which our body has been adversely affected by these pathogens? That is the severity of manifestation. And this severity of manifestation is, of course, is directly dependent on number of pathogens. More are the number of pathogens, more are the number of disease causing microorganisms in our body, more severe is the manifestation of the disease, or you can say the symptoms of disease will be more severe. For example, at the given time, if I am not suffering from any disease, it doesn't mean that there is no disease causing microorganism in our body. There may be the number of microorganisms that are responsible for causing disease in our body, but as they are small in numbers, they can be quickly controlled or easily controlled by my immune system, so that they don't get sufficient opportunity to grow in number and to target the affected organ. But if the immune system is not working properly, or if the microorganisms are so quickly multiplying but that they become very large in number, in that case the immune system alone won't be able to fight against these microorganisms, and then there will be the manifestation or expression of the disease, right? So that is the factor on which the severity of the disease or severity of the manifestation of disease depends. In next lecture, we will be discuss about if there is a disease, there must be some treatment, and of course, as you know, treatment is not good. It's better to prevent the disease. So in next lecture, we will be discussing about the various ways of treatment and prevention of the diseases. Have a nice time. Stay healthy, disease free, and goodbye to all of you.